what's up, Grainger? Welcome to another episode of the Rowe-Thrush Solution Selling Show. So what is the Solution Selling Show? This is a show that we like to do for the Grainger sales force, where we bring on different supplier partners of ours and interview them, asking them questions that we feel the Grainger sales force would like to know. Today's episode, we will be featuring Eriez Magnetics, and we have Eric Confer on to join us today. Good afternoon, Eric. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on and looking forward into getting into the world of Eriez Magnetics and the products that you manufacture.
Absolutely.
Real quick, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what it is that you do at Eriez, how long you've been at Eriez, things like that.
So I've been with Eriez for 19 years now. Just moved to Chicago here in February. I used to work at the factory for the majority of that 19-year period. Previously at Eriez, I was everything from technical sales to product management of magnetic separation, which we'll talk about today. Light industry market manager, so we'll discuss some of the customers that I'm used to dealing with on the Erie side of things. And then lastly, I was the director of aftermarket. An opportunity came up where I could relocate to the lovely city of Chicago. I took full advantage of that opportunity, and now I'm here doing sales.
So how do you like Chicago? You got in, you said in February, so you got in right at the end of winter, so you haven't experienced a Chicago winter just yet.
So it was 5 degrees the day we moved in, so it was close enough.
It was pretty cold.
And in all fairness, Erie, Pennsylvania has very, very cold weather, except my understanding is the difference that we get a great deal of snow. We get snow constantly, and it can be deep. Some winters have been kinder than others, but I think Chicago in general is a little bit colder when it comes to the winter months, not as much snow.
Yeah, and I'm actually, personally, I'm envious of all the snow that everybody on the other side of the lake gets. I wish we got tons and tons of snow, because I remember growing up as a kid, winter meant snow all winter long. And nowadays, winter is, you get a little bit of snow. And so I personally love the snow. To me, what is winter without snow on the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. You know? As a snowboarder, that resonates with me. Not a lot of snow, though, here in Chicago. Not a lot of hills either, so it makes it a little difficult.
Yeah, that too. You got to kind of have to go up to Wisconsin, check out Devil's Head, and there's another mountain, if you will, up in Wisconsin.
Midwest mountain, yeah.
To check out for some of that. But yeah,
sure.
Awesome. All right, I have another question for you. So every year we like to ask a fun question. This year's question that we like to ask our clients is, if you had anywhere to go in the world to travel to, where would you like to go and why?
That's really difficult. Without being cliche and saying one of those big destination things, I feel like I'd like to try Australia. You know, language barriers non-existent for the most part. Yeah. They seem to have really cool culture and lifestyle down there. And then I also want to see how big the spiders actually are.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I was going to make a comment about, how big the spiders, the mosquitoes, everything's bigger there than in Texas.
Yeah, that's the claim, right? Yeah.
And everything is out there, it seems, is out there to kill you, or to hurt you in some way, all the animals and everything, except the koala bears. I don't think
I think they're pretty chill.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, I would love to go to Australia too and visit, because like you said, language barrier, you don't have to worry about that. Beautiful scenery, to check out. Great locations to visit. I'm not sure what the cuisine is like as far as food.
I think there's a lot of Asian influence because of their proximity.
So yeah, that would be an interesting one. I did love growing up watching Crocodile Dundee. That was one of my favorite 80s movies, back in the day. The sequel, it was okay. And then the third one, like him in LA or something,
didn't need to happen.
I think I only watched like 10 minits of it and I stopped. It's like, nope. But,
do you answer this question at all? Because I'm curious where you would want to.
Where would I want to go? Well, I used to always want to go to Bali. That was kind of like my destination. It was some movie that I watched that took place in Bali, and I was just like, oh my God, it looks so beautiful there.
I almost said Bali, by the way. That was like on the tip, but I was like, it feels cliche.
Yeah, a lot of people.
But so does Australia, now that in hindsight.
I don't think a whole lot of people do say Australia, although the language barrier and all that, I think is a good match. But nowadays, and for a long time, it's actually been Egypt. Speaking of cliche, the pyramids and Giza and all of that. I've just always had a real liking of that history. I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. You're
It's
going
rich.
back a long ways, and there's so much to see and do there, and there's the mystery factor of it and all. But yeah, Egypt has always been a place for me that I've always wanted to go. You know, one of my favorite movies growing up was Stargate.
Fantastic.
You know,
Love it.
great sci-fi movie, and that really kind of helped, increase that interest of Egypt.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's a good reference too.
That would be my place.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, so let's get into the world of Eriez Magnetics. So why don't you tell us who Eriez is,
Yeah.
maybe how long they've been in existence, a little bit about their history and current modern day Eriez Magnetics.
Eriez is a global leader in separation technologies, and that is a kind of a broad term itself. We've been around since 1941. We pioneered the industrial plate magnet. Like any other startup business, we came out of a garage basically, and now we're a multinational organization with manufacturing in every continent except the really, really cold one. It's Antarctica, if anybody wasn't getting my joke. So separation technologies, what does that mean? That could be anything from magnetic separators that we produce and Grainger's has on their website. We get into vibratory feeding and screening is really the separation effort when it comes to that technology. We also manufacture flotation columns, and these are largely this utilizes bubbles and fluids to separate out minerals and other mined processes for product purification. So that's a big part of our business, but it's very large scale equipment, nothing that's going to fit within Grainger's catalog. And then, of course, we sell and manufacture material handling equipment, and that's going to be our lift magnets, things like Magna Rail. It might stick underneath the bottom of a belt conveyor, and it's used to maybe move cans for a filling application or a can washing machine. So we get into a variety of, separation technologies it's a very dynamic term we're going to call it.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. And, a lot of times I find myself I know to say that when I'm talking to a Grainger account manager, but then I always find myself, I need to get into lifting magnets and vibratory feeders and some of these products that you're going to see here in a moment, that are actually in Grainger's assortment. When it comes to the types of customers that would be interested in Eriez Magnetics and the types of products that you manufacture, what types of customers would that be?
Broad range. This is a very challenging question to answer only because I could just run on with the SIC codes that we get involved in. I like to tell people in a general sense it's anywhere from food and pharmaceutical all the way up to mining, engineering firms, power plants, and anything in between. We're heavily involved in chemical, lumber industries, and a lot of other sanitary markets. That's kind of a sweet spot for Eriez. And then on the larger side of things, again, those the power plants, aggregates, mineral processing, recycling equipment. We are big in the recycling industry for, again, this is the separation technologies part of things, removing aluminum from the other non-value stream, or they shred up an entire car and it's how do you get the red metals out from the ferrous and the aluminums and the foam and whatnot. So we make systems that are able to reclaim those efficiently.
Very cool. You mentioned forestry, wood. What do you have that fits within there?
We do a lot with magnetic separation and metal detection in particular. The magnetic separation side is just trying to remove anything that would, think of a pellet mill, for example. People use a lot of pellet stoves or furnaces at home. Those little pellets themselves are just ground up wood, right? It could be anything from pallets to just lumber that, dead wood that they're not going to sell at a box store as far as lumber goes. So they'll shred that stuff up, and wood is combustible. And if you get a piece of metal into that shredding system there and it strikes and it causes a spark, especially if it's a confined, very closed system there, it could either be an explosion or a fire. So we make sure that the metal gets out if we can get it with a magnet, and then we double check it with the metal detector to make sure that there is no metal over whatever the size limitation or threshold is for the shredding and grinding equipment.
Okay. With sawdust, you hear about it every now and then, and the importance of keeping everything nice and safe in those environments.
Yeah, it's a safety thing, and it preserves the equipment too. You don't want a bunch of metal going through your grinders and cutters.
Yeah, it's going to dull them out and possibly damage. manage the equipment too, and I'm sure that equipment's pretty pricey.
Yeah, more expensive than the magnet and the metal detector typically. So we're very good insurance on that.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. When it comes to the customer business issues, or CBIs as Grainger likes to call it, what are some of those that you can help solve? We actually just kind of touched on safety, but is there anything else that you guys can help customers out?
Yeah, when it comes to production of materials, we look at it as two fronts. There's the safety side, like we just addressed, people getting hurt, limiting liabilities within a facility as well. And I don't mean people getting hurt, I mean the equipment degradation, just destroying equipment that's very costly, which ultimately reduces downtime. When a piece of equipment breaks, well, now they're not producing, right? So there is the safety side, then there's the purification side of things. When you're mining materials, for example, or you're processing materials for a food product, you want to make sure that it is of the highest quality. At Eriez Manufacturing, our job is to remove out the ferrous and then try to capture any of the non-ferrous or stainless steel through our inspection systems as well. So it's safety, and then it is the product purification itself that we're focused on. Sustainability kind of hits on different fronts for us at Eriez. The stuff that would be a little bit more specific to Grainger would be our fluid recycling equipment. Okay. So that could be anything from our sump cleaners themselves, which are really industrial scaled shop vacs, so to speak. I mean, heavy duty.
Oh yeah.
I can't tell you, we just had FabTech in town here last week, and it's a big fabrication show. And we've got metalworking companies coming up to us saying, hey, I'm burning out shop vacs all the time. Because in the interest of saving money, people often take cheaper routes. It's not necessarily the appropriate route, but people, are watching their budgets. Yeah. Well, they'll spend $100, $200 on a shop vac at your local auto parts store, and they'll burn that thing out after a month. The version that we make is significantly stronger. We have spare parts per hour, so if anything does happen, you can fix the machine, but we are removing all those chips out of that machine, right out of that sump tank. From there, we are cleaning the fluids, the coolants themselves. Coolant is incredibly expensive, but it's very critical to all these machine shops' operation. Dirty coolant is going to dull your tools. Yeah. Dirty coolant is going to stink up the shop a little bit. Dirty coolant is just going to cause general wear on the machines. You're going to get parts that are coated in oil because old machines leak. New machines use a lot of cheap parts, and then they leak oil into the process as well. So we've also got our coalescer line of products that's in the Grainger catalog to get rid of the oil once we get rid of all that tramp metal that's in there. So they preserve their coolant. And again, coolant is probably the biggest expense aside from the machinery and labor that a metalworking shop or a fabrication shop is going to have every year.
Awesome. So we have sustainability, we have safety, and we have productivity that your products can help customers out with.
That's it. Absolutely.
Perfect. Now let's put on our Grainger hats. Let's say we're a Grainger account manager. We're walking into a customer facility. Let's just say it's a manufacturing facility. What are some of the things that we should be looking for at that customer site? And who should we be talking to at the facility about what we saw? And what are some questions that we should ask them when it comes to talking about Eriez Magnetics?
Yeah.
So what to look for, who to talk to, and what questions should we be asking?
Sure. If we're talking manufacturing in that fabrication sense again, I'll try to contain most of this to that. When you walk in, you're going to see a bunch of machines. Those machines tell me that they probably, if they don't already have a solution for this, require something like that sump cleaner and maybe even the coalescer itself. Count of the machines tells you how needy they might be. Yeah. If they've got a lot of machines, if they've got small machines or big machines, getting an idea of just how much metal that they're turning down and cutting all the time really starts to give you an idea of that value proposition. Hey, we can save you guys all this time with cleaning your sump docks cleaning your sumps with that little shop vac that you have there. Because our smallest unit is going to flow 85 gallons a minute. Whereas, I don't know what the flow rates are of a shop vac from your hardware store.
Not quite that much.
It's not that much. It's not that much.
Yeah.
And then it's got the screen on the inside, so we're filtering out that metal too, so that can either be recycled, reclaimed, again, more sustainability there, get some of your value back there. And then obviously it's going to be out of that stream of coolant there. The person that you'd want to talk to in this particular instance, the plant manager, shop manager is going to know just how much time they spend cleaning machines and how much money they spend on dirty coolant. And either you look out in California, for example, it costs like $30 a gallon to junk your coolant out there.
The disposal fee.
Yeah, the disposal fee is so heavy. So then the question is, well, how do you mitigate that? And it's reuse as much of your coolant as possible. So being able to clean out the metal itself and then being able to remove the oil from that coolant is invaluable to their production and uptime, and of course their bottom line at the end. So talking to the plant manager, that guy knows what's going on out there on the floor, and he can give you much better information in terms of, you know, how frequently do they need to clean it, and you can start to justify the ROI on these machines based on that. How much coolant are you having to dispose of every year that could otherwise be recycled and put back into the process? We also manufacture technology refractometers, so they can gauge the coolant to water ratio. And by doing that, and you're never wasting too much coolant because you don't want to have too much coolant in there with the water. And then of course you want to have enough lubricity and cooling action of the coolant that you don't want to have too much water in there too. Yeah. So it's we really support that system in a couple different ways.
Now, when it comes to some of the other products that we manufacture as well, so that was strictly the fluid recycling. We have other products that are in Grainger as well. So when it comes to those, the vibratory feeders, the magnets, lifting magnets or whatnot, what should they be looking for those types of products as well?
Yeah, so lift magnets kind of goes back to the same manufacturing facility that we're talking about, people who have burn tables, people who are picking up cans for canning applications. We make very large lift magnets that cover a great deal of surface area, so you can pick up the top level of a pallet of cans and then put it onto a filling station tray. With the metalworking folks, the lift magnet for the burn table is imperative. It's a function to remove the dog clamp style of the old pickups where you'd have the hoist and you'd kind of clamp onto the side of a product, and it's really awkward lift and it's not always the most secure. With the permanent magnets that we offer through Grainger, there is no power loss on these things, so if the power goes down, you don't have something getting dropped from an electromagnet. And then just the ease of use on these things. They've got a lot of great safety features built into them. They're very easy to use once you have the magnetic field established where you're contacting a piece of ferrous. So
what about vibratory feeders?
Yeah, vibratory feeders. Yeah, I mean, it could be a couple different key individuals at a company that might use a vibratory feeder. It could certainly be the shop manager, foreman, plant manager. I like to talk to operators though too, and QA folks. QA folks in particular, they're very stringent about, I'll say, food safety in this particular context.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we look at a vibratory feeder, for example, a vibratory feeder moves product from point A to point B, right? Pretty simple. So we could be packaging things, or we could just be moving from one operation to another part of the operation, filling boxes or whatever. The vibratory feeder can be an all stainless steel tray with a sanitary interior finish. Compared to a traditional conveyor belt, you get buildup on the bottom side of that, and now you have, biological hazards that start to cause little creepy crawly problems. And the QA people, they don't want that. So our machine is significantly easier to sanitize. It does the same job, if not a better job, with being able to start and stop constantly. If you've got a traditional conveyor belt, you don't have that option built into it to turn it on and off all the time for filling or packaging applications. And then on top of that, through Grainger sourcing, we can integrate things like screeners. So now you're not only moving product from point A to point B, as part of the process, we're also removing, it could be, oversized clumps of things, choke hazards, or we could be dedusting and removing the fines out of a product that is supposed to be larger. I always think of breakfast cereals. There's a certain, I don't know if you could say brands on here, but there's a certain O-shape, breakfast cereal. Nobody wants a bunch of C's in their boxes.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody wants a bunch of half-completed circles, so we would screen out that undersized product and just have a whole box full of those O's.
O's, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. So when it comes to supplier resources, what do you have that's available to the Grainger sales force?
Yeah, we have direct access to our field sales and our field sales offices. We have people that are all over the country, I should say, all over North America, all over the globe, that have a focus, factory-trained focus on Erie's products and services. And these people have so much experience with other applications that they bring that to the table when you're having a discussion on somebody wants to solve a certain problem, there's a very good chance that they have experience in that and can help guide somebody who may not have as much experience through that particular process. Load them up with, what questions to ask. Tell them how things realistically work versus maybe what they read off the internet and have biases towards. So it allows us to engage, have a conversation, and get somebody the right piece of equipment, not just a piece of equipment.
Excellent. And at the end, too, we'll include some contact information so you could reach out to Eric to ask more questions about who the local person would be for you, or you could always reach out to myself or anybody else here at Rowe-Thrush to get that local field support contact name and information. When it comes to documented value, what types of cost savings can your products provide Grainger customers?
Yeah, that's always difficult to throw a number out there loosely, because it's unique to each application. It really depends on let's say in the capacity of our fluid recycling equipment again. It depends on what kinds of coolant they're using, how they're using those coolants, how much they're going through, and then we can start to work out some of the math on, if you don't have to buy as much, here's going to be your net savings, and that helps us get to the point of ROI. We also have other things like white papers and case studies that help people understand the value long term from actual users of the equipment, not just, it's one thing for me to say like, hey, we can do all this stuff for you and it's going to save you this much money. It's another thing to go and here's how we did it at company A, B, and C. And people really like to see that.
And one thing that we'll do too, we'll include some white papers, whether it be in the QR code down below or elsewhere. We'll make sure to include that for you to be able to access and share with your customers as well. All right, now we're going to talk about a new product that we are looking to add into Grainger. So Eric, please tell us a little bit about this magnet separator and applications for it and any features that it may have.
Yeah, this is what we refer to as a B-trap. This is a liquid line trap, and we use it for liquid magnetic separation. You can see that we've got the element kind of popped out of the main body housing here, and we utilize magnetic fingers as effectively a filter for various types of liquids and other types of slurries. We make these in 2, 3, 4-inch diameter ports at the end. This one in particular is a 3-inch with the 14W LMO sanitary fittings. We are also manufacture this with NPT threads on the end, so if somebody wants to thread it into place. And then through Grainger sourcing, somebody could certainly purchase it with, just butt ends if they wanted to weld the housing into place, or some of the other fancier, threads or different types of ends. We also produce it with flanges, so if somebody wants to put 150-pound flanges on it, they can bolt this into place as well. The housing itself is cast 316 stainless steel. This thing is, I don't like saying bomb proof, but it's pretty darn close to being, some type of explosion proof, just in terms of its overall durability. The elements are removable and of course replaceable. So if somebody, has a drop on the floor, if they see a temperature surge that's over the 250 Fahrenheit rating on these, we can easily replace the element itself as well. And then we provide it in a variety of different finishes. As far as this one here we're looking at is a food grade. This is a very sanitary unit, thus the 14W LMOs. And if you were to see the inside, it's basically a 32 RA polish on the interior, which, QA folks, sanitary people, that's spot on for them. It's pretty darn close to a USDA type standard. Somebody, again, maybe like a machine shop where they'd have the NPT fittings on the end, they're not looking for it to be that sanitary. The inside might just be a rough casting that's been bored out a little bit.
So a question about this, how often would a customer need to actually take the magnets out to clean them or remove what they've caught? How often do they check that?
That's the most difficult question to answer, but to actually get the answer, it's not too bad. So I'd like to tell people when they first purchase the unit, check it after an hour of running. And if nothing's on there, great. Check it after a half shift of running. And if nothing's on there, great. Check it after a full shift of running. Just keep going through that process till you figure out when is the magnet?
Often?
Yeah, when is the magnet getting too convoluted that there is potential to block the pipeline because it's amassed so much ferrous and 400 series stainless from the process itself. It's more of a feeling process more than it is a measurable metric.
I guess something else you could do probably is downstream, you could add a pressure gauge maybe, and when you see what the stable normal operating pressure is, if you see it increasing, then that's a good example or good time to take this apart and see how much is in there, because you probably got a little bit of blockage, like you said.
Absolutely, and we do that. We make a larger version called a T-trap, and it's basically a fabricated version of this for sizes that are 6 inches all the way up to 24-inch diameter, 30-inch diameter pipes.
Wow.
And going back to our discussion on lumber industry, we use a lot in the paper, pulp, tissue industry to, because they're shredding up pallets. Pallets have nails in them. Nails don't go well in toilet paper.
Yeah, that would not be pleasant.
And it's not just from the rust or the discoloration. You don't want foreign debris in there. So we utilize a much larger version of this, and they do exactly what you mentioned, James. They put a pressure sensor downstream, and then they have one upstream as well, so they can see that delta. If it's starting to get backed up on the one, then they realize, I think the magnet is dirty. In an instance like that, or even a small magnet like this, if the process is very dirty, so to speak, where they have to clean this frequently, buy a second element, clean that element that you just pulled offline, put the new element back in.
That way you can keep your process going.
Exactly, because time's money, right?
Oh,
so the more time you're spent cleaning the magnet, which is just doing its job, and it's going to do it very, very well, the less time that you're actually producing. So having a spare magnetic element is a huge upside to productivity. You get this complete with the clamp and the O-ring that's in here. All the equipment that we supply, we sell spare parts for directly. I mentioned I was director of aftermarket previously. I'm a big proponent of buy those spares in advance.
Yes, because of the downtime, it's just...
People call in a panic. They're freaking out. Some instances, they might have to send employees home because they've got to shut things down because critical control point at their facility is down and out for days, months.
That's what Grainger is known for, maintenance, repair, and operations. Their tagline, for the ones who get it done, they want to get it done. They want to make sure that their customers are operating. They don't want downtime. So that's critical. What types of customers would be interested in this type of a product?
I would say the biggest customer for this type of equipment is food producers. They have to do certain things to protect their customers and protect their brand name. Right? And nobody wants to get a piece of metal in whatever their food, their consumable is, right? So they go, and of course there's also the matter of equipment degradation too. That metal gets further downstream and now it starts to wreak havoc in the process and beats up other equipment, and we're back to that whole downtime situation. So food, pharmaceutical, chemical, plastics industry, polymers will utilize the traps because when they're manufacturing polymers, it lends itself to chemistry at that point. So it's almost like a chemical producer, just a different industry classification. But I would say those are probably four of our biggest consumers of a product like this.
And what type of a magnet is this? Because there's different types of magnets.
Yeah, absolutely. So this one here is going to be our strongest. This is what we call our extreme rare earth. We developed this a couple years ago, and it balances high pull force with Gauss. So for the nerds in the audience, this does a great job of balancing those two data points. This is a rare earth, and rare earth is really designed to remove fine iron. In fact, if you can see up close there, we actually have some fine iron on the little rings around the poles itself. So it's kind of grabbing, that's basically shop dust from us up shipping the unit. Ceramic magnets are really designed for nuts and bolt type applications. Largely, we see people having a ceramic magnet ahead of a rare earth magnet to come kind of clean up, right? So we get out as much as we possibly can with the ceramic magnet, and then we make sure nothing is in there down to, some level of microns that the rare earth is able to separate out of the product.
Now what we have in front of us here is a vibratory feeder. We have a variety of different styles and types of vibratory feeders loaded into Grainger. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about this model that we have here?
Yeah, this one in particular is a Model A vibratory feeder here. It's very, very small, permanent and electromagnetic drive. This unit is designed to, again, move material from point A to point B using vibrations. This one operates at 60 hertz, so that's the number of vibrations per second. And then depending on how much voltage we're sending it through, Grainger also sells the corresponding control with the potentiometer for this unit. It could also be operated off of a PLC, or can take signals like 0 to 10 milliamp and 4 to 20 signals. So it's very nice for integration into systems. But basically this thing shakes material along. It's very gentle in its nature, and don't mistake the size for volume. This thing will flood tons of, if we're talking about sand, 100 pounds a cubic foot, this thing is going to flood tons of that per hour at its top rate. So they move a lot of material. They're relatively silent while they do it. They have very, very few parts to break. All the units that we sell through Grainger are wash down duty. So they're going to come with stainless steel hardware. They've got a food grade paint, or epoxy rather, on the outside of them to protect them from things like rusting, because this body is cast. So this thing is ready to go in pretty much any facility out there.
Yeah, and you have a variety of different sizes, some with longer troughs, wider troughs. What are some applications where people would be using these, like customer types in manufacturing?
Sure. So this might sit at the bottom of a super sack or a hopper, and it might draw material from that super sack or hopper and move it into the next part of processing that material. Or, flip that around, we might be filling something like a super sack by using a vibratory feeder, and it's drawing from a storage hopper of some sort that they want to get very, very accurate metering characteristics, where, again, a conveyor belt's just not good for that. This thing can start and stop on a dime effectively. So, again, using the control that we offer and having it send a signal back through the control, telling it to ramp up for the high volume portion of the fill, or telling it to back down a little bit because we're getting towards the end and we just want to do a trickle feed. This thing will just dribble grains of sand right off the end of it if we want to go that slow. So you get really, really accurate filling results and accuracy in blends and formulations as you're feeding other parts of the process too. I would also add that, this could have the screen added to it at some point. We don't recommend a user modifying to do that, because there is, as scientific as this is set up, there's also an art to, weight distribution, placement of screens. So that's where we would say, hey, go through your Grainger sourcing person, have them reach out to your local salesperson like myself. We can start to talk about the boundaries of the application and the expectations on what it needs to do, and we can find the right product.
All right, now we're going to get into some lifting magnets, specifically the Safe Hold line of lifting magnets. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about this and any other variations that you might have too?
Yeah. This is a Safe Hold lift magnet, as James pointed out. And what this is designed to do is to connect to a hoist, crane, a jib, whatever you have there. And it's designed to assist, I'll just say a burn table operator or somebody who's pressing large, heavy parts out of a machine itself. And it's effectively a two-pole magnet. So you've got a north and a south on the bottom and another north and a south. All it takes to operate this unit is, right now it's in the off position, so if these phone books were metal, it wouldn't pick anything up. But we flip it over to here, lock it in, we've got our safety mechanism in place there. So this thing would now be secured to the piece of ferrous or 400 stainless below it, making it very, very easy to lift that up. And one of the biggest things about this is, don't let the size fool you. This one here is good for 300 pounds itself, so it can pick up a pretty significant amount of weight given its physical size, and these are, I would say, relatively affordable pieces of equipment.
So other sizes that you have, what is the heaviest rated lifting magnet that you have?
Yeah, right now it's 7,500 pounds on a single unit.
Wow, 7,500.
So that's significant weight there, and you got to figure that weight is including a big safety factor in there too. 7,500 pounds on a single circuit. A good fabrication shop can make their own spreader beam, and they can put multiple magnets on there.
Okay.
So if you've got the right beam and it's engineered properly, you could have 2 of those 7,500 pound magnets. You could have 3 of those 7,500 pound magnets, and now you're lifting some seriously large stuff with just 3 magnets, so to speak.
Now, is that just with the Safe Hold line, or are you getting into electromagnets that you get up to 7,500?
Yeah, so the electromagnets, we can do a lot with the electromagnet style, custom tailor circuits if we wanted to, if somebody really, really had a need for it. But for the most part, the electromagnet line that we have already pre-designed fits 99.5% of existing applications, right, of user needs there. So the electromagnets are nice for guys who drive fork trucks and they want to integrate the circuit to the end. They might hang the electromagnet off the end of one of the forks. They'll pick things up with it, but they also want to be able to put it down without getting out of the fork truck. So the electromagnet kind of gives that advantage.
Okay. But the Safe Hold does 300 pounds up to 7,500.
That's correct.
We have a variety of different weight capacities loaded into Grainger under the Safe Hold line of lifting magnets. We also have, like we were talking about, the electromagnets loaded into Grainger too, with a variety of capacities for those.
Eriez has a refurbishment and recertification program.
Oh, okay.
So some facilities are required to have their magnets checked for capacity ratings annually.
Okay.
And it might be more than annually. It could be 2 years, it could be 5 years. It doesn't matter. Eriez has the ability to repair a lot of these and then retest and certify off a pull test machine that we have where we check the breakaway strength for it. So, you buy this once and hopefully you keep it for a long time, especially some of the shops that you go into. It can be a little bit rough on equipment, so us being able to repair them, we've got plenty of spare parts in stock, things like handles, some of these safety pins and switches and whatnot on the electrodes. That stuff is all replaceable, so your cost of ownership over time is really dragged out, so it really reduces the initial cost over time.
I would say that's kind of an important thing to cover too, the fact that you can go out and test these to make sure that this magnet still can handle 300 pounds, because over time, the abuse factor, but also just time and it maybe wearing out, I think that's very important, because in most cases you're lifting something that's 200-300 pounds up in the air, and who knows how high up you have it. If there's somebody below it, or even if there isn't, and that thing lets go, something's dropping down, it's going to damage something, or God forbid, somebody gets injured or killed.
Yeah, and that's on the lighter side of what these magnets do. Imagine the heavier stuff, the stuff with commas in the weight.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, even worse factor when it comes to those bigger units.
Yeah.
So that's great that you can go out and you can service and check and make sure that everything's still up to speed.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. All right, now we're going to talk about Eriez Magnetics tube magnets. Tell us a little bit about it and applications and why people would use these products.
So this little guy here is more of a demonstration tool to differentiate the 3 primary circuits that Eriez offers. Currently listed in the Grainger catalog is what we refer to internally as RE5. That's our 5th generation of rare earth, as well as our CR2, that's our 2nd generation of ceramic tube magnet. The rare earth is going to go after your fragmentation, your finer materials. The ceramic is going to go after things like nuts, bolts, and larger fragmentation, so to speak. We do also offer our extreme rare earth. The extreme rare earth is not part of the current Grainger catalog, but it's available through Grainger sourcing. This is going to be for really, really fine. This is your pharmaceutical grade. This is your serious food producer grade. All the foodies, they choose RE7 over the RE5 all day. The costs are similar. The biggest difference here is that the RE5 pulls about 80 ounces with a 1/4 inch ball. The RE7 pulls 100 ounces and above with a 1/4 inch ball. That's what we guarantee from the factory. The ceramic we measure with a 1 inch ball, so it's not really a good comparison.
Okay.
By that particular
but it's a different
tool.
type of magnet.
It's totally different. So it's not supposed to do what the other two do.
Yeah.
This guy is scalping out the big stuff, and then one of these
the finer.
Exactly. I would say the other difference is a difference in durability. And I'm not going to get into the specifics because of part of our spices and how we manufacture this.
The secret sauce.
The secret sauce, absolutely. The tube wall thickness is going to be a little bit different on both of these. So this RE5, the standard rare earth, is going to be a little bit more durable for applications. So if you have something that's abrasive, even though this is stronger, unless you can tolerate having to purchase replacements more frequently, if you've got an abrasive product, we're going to recommend that you use the basic rare earth. And we can also put coatings on these things too. So if somebody is in that situation, we can put specialized coatings on here for certain acidic applications, or again, abrasive type applications, things that might otherwise cause the stainless steel a little bit of harm.
We have the RE5 size on the left here. That is in Grainger. Do we have the CR2?
You have
ceramic?
the CR2? Yeah.
We do have that one in Grainger too. But when it comes to the RE7, that one you would have to go through Grainger sourcing. Although we'll probably be proposing that sometime soon to try and get it in, because there are Grainger customers that are going to need that type of product.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Eric, for covering all those products. Is there anything else that you want to cover here before we wrap things up?
Yeah, as far as what Eriez can offer through Grainger sourcing, I'd like to add just a couple items, and that would be our inspection system portfolio. We have been producing metal detectors for a number of decades now, and anything from aggregate industry down to food industry. And we also produce x-ray machines as well. So if metal detection just isn't good enough, you're worried about other types of contaminations in the product, Eriez has a solution for that as well. And these solutions stem from, the magnets that we use. How do you validate that you got all the metal out or other contaminants from a product? Well, that's what the metal detector does. That's what the x-ray inspection system would do.
And we're not talking about airport security or anything like that. These are different x-rays, these are different metal detection type systems, but very critical and important when it comes to especially food manufacturing, pharmaceutical, or anything else when it comes to
liability.
Especially, when it comes to liability.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to stamp their big brand name on that box and your kids are potentially going to open it up and eat whatever's in there, you better be darn sure that things that aren't supposed to be in there are not in there.
Yeah. Remember back in the day when they used to put toys in cereal boxes? I kind of miss those days. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, that's back when we didn't have bills to pay.
Yeah, they were crappy toys, but it was still always exciting.
It was my toy.
Do you have any final words or anything like that you want to say to the Grainger sales force?
No, thank you for having us. I think that would be the most appropriate thing. You guys do a fantastic job of marketing, which in turn means that my product gets more placement than I can do just by myself. So I'm incredibly grateful for having an outlet like Grainger and working with you at Rowe-Thrush, being able to push through that channel.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Don't forget to scan the QR code down below for additional resources. We provide links to Grainger.com and Erie's products, as well as their website, social media, and other great information. So scan that QR code down below. All right. Well, thank you so much, Eric, for joining us on our show today. Again, we do this for the Grainger sales force to help educate you as far as what our suppliers can provide your customers. So thank you for joining us and giving us this information about Erie's Magnetics. Hope you all have a great day.
Thanks.